Thank you very much. So I am Keith Bondarchuk, President and CEO of Cosa Resources. We are a uranium exploration company with assets in the prolific Athabasca Basin in Saskatchewan, Canada. We are a somewhat newer story, but we're led by a team with a track record of discovery and success and really creating shareholder value over the past 20 years. So I'll talk a bit more about the team. A team is everything when you're an exploration company. They'll eventually lead you towards that significant discovery. Strategic support. We have a relationship with Denison Mines. They're our largest shareholder, and they're our partners on multiple projects. And then targets. That's the biggest thing for a company like us. What are our targets? When will the drill be turning? And hopefully, when could we ultimately make that next great discovery? So I'll point to those three companies at the bottom. What do they all have in common? They all made a significant discovery in the Athabasca Basin in the past 15, 20 years that underpins their current valuations. You know, $8 billion, $670 million, $4 billion. Something else that I also have in common is our group played a role in all of them during the discovery phase. You know, you look at our team there, it's David Cates, who's the current CEO of Denison Mines. We have Craig Perry, founding director of NextGen, founding CEO of ISO Energy, Steve Bloor, VPX of both Denison and ISO Energy. And you also notice I'm actually not up there. You know, I'm actually surrounded by a terrific team, and I'm just the messenger of this great story and what we're trying to build together. So I won't belabor this point, but I just want to show you that we did hold prominent roles, importantly, in all of these companies. You know, we had CEOs, we had VPXs, we had project geologists during the discovery phase. Also point to a bit of timelines here. You look, you know, Chad Sorba, our technical advisor, joined Denison in 2006. 2008, they made their Phoenix discovery. Steve Bloor went over to Denison 2012. 2014, they made their discovery. All of us went over to ISO Energy in 2016. 2018, we made the Hurricane discovery. And that brings us to today with Cosa Resources. 2025, we made a significant transaction with Denison Mines, whereby we acquired a 70% interest in 3 projects. In return, they became our largest and most strategic shareholder, owning just under 20%. They put up their hand and maintained that 20% through multiple financings. But you look through our past history, it's this track record of taking a year or two to maybe find that right project, maybe find that right team member, and ultimately, you know, hopefully lead to a discovery. And it's really pointing towards this year as being a significant year for us, where we really get to put our capital to work on those great projects we acquired from Denison Mines. Denison, I mean, you guys will all be familiar with them if you are familiar with the uranium industry. They're one of the best development stories out there in the uranium space. They have a very healthy treasury. As I said before, they've maintained their 20% interest in us through multiple financings, which is a huge thing to have as a junior company. And importantly, they had really good projects that they weren't going to get to during this uranium cycle. Hence, that led to an opportunity for us to complete a transaction with them. The Athabasca Basin in Saskatchewan, Canada. This is the eastern Athabasca Basin portion of it. That's where all the current mines and mills are. You know, Cameco is 2 of the world's largest mines there with Cigar Lake and McArthur River. Importantly, the Athabasca Basin does have the highest grade uranium in the world. The Hurricane deposit, which our team found during our time at ISO Energy in 2018, the average grade of that deposit is 34.5% uranium. For perspective, the average grade of uranium deposit outside of the Athabasca Basin is 0.2% uranium. So the average grade of that was 34.5% uranium. Over half of that deposit, over 90% of that deposit was above 50% uranium. Truly some of the most valuable rock in the world. And so that brings us to our Denison joint venture projects. Murphy Lake North, you'll see there, it's right beside the Hurricane deposit. It's right beside the deposit we found in 2018. Cigar Lake, Darby project, right beside Cigar Lake, the largest uranium mine in the world. We're butting right up against Cameco's ground there. And this is an area that's highly competitive. You basically got to knock on the door of Cameco, Denison, or Orano to get access to projects like this. And as simple as it sounds, the best place to be looking for uranium is buy uranium. And so when we saw this opportunity, we jumped at it, and that's why we'll be focused on those 2 projects this year. This is just a little schematic to kind of show you guys how we ultimately find these uranium deposits. Essentially, you have the uranium mineralization there in the red. This is showing underground. But in and around that red, you have a whole bunch of fluid that's required to form these deposits, and so you get these large halos, what we call. It's geochemical halos where you have a little bit of elevated uranium, or it's the sandstone or the rock around it's been absolutely destroyed. So when you find these deposits, usually you find these halos first, then you can hopefully go in and find the uranium mineralization within those halos. So the Darby project, like I said, right up against Cigar Lake. It hasn't been drilled since 2009. it ticks all those boxes of what you look for, where it has elevated uranium, it hasn't seen a drill hole in a significant number of years, and has all these low-hanging fruit, because majority of these deposits are found by following up old historical drill holes. That's just how it happens. Somebody came in, maybe they didn't have enough capital, they drilled a hole and were never able to follow it up. We can reference that hole, look at it geologically and follow it up, and that's how we found the Hurricane deposit at IsoEnergy. You look back to Denison with Phoenix, they followed up an old chemical hole at both Phoenix and Griffin. That's just how these things are ultimately found, is following up these old drill holes. And so that's what we'll be doing here. We're drilling is about to commence at Darby within the next couple of days. And, in this environment, with the tailwinds in the uranium space and the potential to make a high-grade discovery, any drill hole could change the trajectory of our company. At IsoEnergy, when we discovered the Hurricane deposit, our share price went from 30 cents to $6 in 18 months, just on the back of that high-grade discovery in a much worse uranium market. So it just goes to show what can happen to these stocks if you ultimately make that next great discovery. And this is just showing the targets we have at Darby. Going back to that cartoon schematic that I showed before, there's elevated uranium everywhere here. You see that alteration halo. These are all walk-up targets that have a chance to ultimately be that next great hole for us. And so we'll be active there. The drill will be turning here in a couple of days. Murphy Lake North, the other project we're going to drill this year, it's sitting right beside the Hurricane deposit. Like I said, our group found that at our previous company, IsoEnergy. It's very shallow targets. We're seeing a lot of alteration in that area. We left the drill on site there from summer last year, and so we're going to be drilling this also this winter. And so a very exciting time for us. We'll be drilling as much as we can at Darby and Murphy Lake North, and the drill will be turning here in a couple of days. This is kind of showing what I'm talking about. That core, or that picture on the left, is what a background hole looks like. That's what we call a duster in the industry. It's not what you want to see. The hole on the right is what we're actually seeing at Murphy Lake North. That rock has been destroyed. That purple color has been removed. This is a good sign. We're seeing alteration volume in this area that can sustain a massive deposit, and so we're excited to go back there, and we'll be following this up as soon as we can. 100% owned projects. We have a whole bunch of projects. And, we've always taken that approach of drill it and kill it. I'm talking to you about Darby and Murphy Lake North today, but we always keep a pipeline of projects. Everybody congratulates us for our early success at IsoEnergy, but it was our 7th project where we ultimately found the Hurricane deposit. And so we're always looking to upgrade this pipeline of projects. If we get a project and we're not going to be able to work it ourselves, we'll do a transaction to sell it, to move off and be value accretive opportunities that way. And why is this land getting more and more valuable? I'll show you. January 2020, all those orange claims are what were currently owned by companies at that time. 2026. 2020, 2026. Everybody's flocking to this area to go after high-grade uranium. It's highly competitive. We have a good footprint, a good foothold in this entire area. We were fortunate with timing to be a bit early, and we have terrific projects to take advantage of this upcoming and continuing uranium bull market. So what's next? Drilling at Darby, drilling at Murphy Lake North. The drill will be turning here in a couple days. Like I said, that's the biggest catalyst for a company like us. So capital structure-wise, Denison's our largest shareholder at just under 20%. Management advisors, we still control just under 20%. We obviously made a bit of money of IsoEnergy, and we've rolled that through into Cosa. We continue to support this deal. You'll see us buy on market and participate in every financing. Then funds and strategics control about 26%. Those are long uranium funds that have been supporting us through multiple companies. And so it's a very tightly held company. And what people got to remember too is when we were at IsoEnergy, another reason our share price went from 30 cents to $6 is because NextGen was our largest shareholder. Having that big strategic shareholder in there can really allow upward pressure if you do have that success on the stock. And so we've done our best to replicate that exact same scenario. We have that strategic shareholder in Denison Mines. And so if we do have success, you can see our share price torque more relative to our peers. Cash-wise, we have just under $10 million in the treasury, so healthy treasury, and so we're in good shape to be drilling as much as we can this year. We're also part of Inventa Capital. It's really an incubator for companies like Cosa. Visa Silver would be the biggest name. Visa Silver started off the exact same way as Cosa. Visa Silver is now a $3 billion company on the New York Stock Exchange. We build these companies in this office. The partners at Inventa offer a lot of support to Cosa, both as advisors, but also participating in financings and putting their capital to work. So when you go through a checklist of what you look for in a junior company, you look for team. Well, we have that team. Track record of multiple discoveries over the past 20 years. Access to capital. We have great access to capital with Denison there maintaining 20%, but also being backed by Inventa Capital. Catalysts. We're about to be drilling here, and we're about to be drilling as much as we can throughout the year, which is the biggest catalyst for a company like us. So thank you very much.